Yeah, it's going to be really fun with the group that we have. I'm very excited.
It's all good.
So I'm here to talk about fundraising, and my primary focus was Cub Scout fundraising, but it can apply to anyone. So my name is Christy Pierce. I've been with Scouts for quite a long time. My son started as a tiger. He's now currently a Life Scout. My daughter started the first year that girls could join in Cubs. So she worked all the way from tiger all the way up, and she's currently a Star Scout. So
Senior patrol leader too.
And yes, and they're actually both senior patrol leaders currently together, which is fun. So I've been doing this for quite a while. I've been involved doing fundraising both with PACs and with troops. So I have a fair bit of experience, and our scouts are quite successful as well, which is nice. So I was going to start with a fun little kind of pop quiz. I don't need answers yet, but you will get these answered as time goes on. So you can think about if you already know the answers to these questions. And if not, I'm super excited that you're going to go ahead and you're going to learn something today. So talking about fundraising, so one of the questions is, can PACs solicit donations?
Ooh.
So that's a good question when we're talking about fundraising, is how do we do that and what are our options? Also, I want to talk about what fundraising opportunities does council provide for us, which are there. So what are our options that we have to go ahead and look that way? And then looking outside the council, like, can you have a fundraiser outside of what CPC does? And then looking and kind of doing a deeper dive in that and what is required there and what do we need to do. So speaking about fundraisers, some different things you might be thinking about are, can you run a bingo night? Can you do that as a fundraiser? Is that an option? Sounds like a lot of fun. So we'll talk about that. And then another thing people do, and lots of people do this to go ahead and fundraise and raise money, are, can you do like a Kickstarter or a GoFundMe campaign? So those are some pretty common ways that lots of people will fundraise. So we'll talk and we'll learn if those are all options for us as Scouters, and get you guys maybe some different ideas if you don't already have some. So let's go ahead and let's talk about why might we want to go ahead and do a fundraiser. Well, to kind of talk about why we want to do a fundraiser, we really need to look at where do funds come from for our PACs. So there's a variety of ways that PACs can go ahead and earn money for them. So one of those, in a very common way that PACs can go ahead and earn money, is PAC dues. It's very common for every PAC to have a kind of flat fee or sum, which they go ahead and require from every Scout. Other options and things, there are many employers who offer volunteer grant programs based on the number of hours that are put in. That's a great way to go ahead and raise funds for your PACs if you have members who have employers who do that. Other options are, a lot of employers will do match programs. So if you make a donation, they will go ahead and match that. There are varying degrees of match amounts, but that is also an option. And some charter organizations may also go ahead and provide financial support. So those are different ways in addition to fundraising. So why, if you have these other options, why might you want to fundraise? Is that a good idea? Is that not a good idea? Well, everybody comes from different backgrounds. We definitely want to make scouting available to everyone. So having a wide variety of options a lot of times will help appeal to more people. If you only look at one thing, that could definitely turn off some families. So making sure you have lots of options and lots of opportunities for them to go ahead and help. So even if you offer those, fundraising is not always required. We always want to make sure they have options, but there are a lot of different benefits to going ahead and doing fundraising, both for the PACs themselves and for the Scouts that are involved. So one nice thing is the PAC, it's a different way for them to go ahead and get revenue and contribute. So you're not directly asking all of the adults involved to go ahead and just continue to help fund the youth's opportunities and all of the experiences that they get to go ahead and they get to have. Other things, it teaches a lot of scout skills, because when we go ahead and we do fundraising, it's not the adults who are out there that are asking, it's the scouts, it's our youth who are going ahead and asking. So it helps them build confidence, you know, regardless, wherever they're at, wherever they're doing that, you know, to go ahead, whether it's a friend, a family member, or a complete and total stranger. How do they go ahead? How do they ask? Are there ways that we can coach them? And it's really cool to go ahead and see, as they do this more and more, you see that confidence level build, and you see their speaking skills evolve. You go ahead and you see them going from, hi, can you please do, to this very like, I'm here, I'm proud, I've got this, I know how to do this. And they have this amazing presentation. And that's true from even the youngest little lion all the way up to the Eagle Scout. It's very cool to go ahead and see them as they progress and as they mature. And then if they continue to do the same sort of similar fundraiser each year, they're already like, oh, I got this. I did this last year. I know exactly what I'm doing and how to do this. So we talked a little bit about those speaking skills. If they're doing fundraising, a lot of kids, they really like to go ahead and potentially handle the money, right? So it teaches them financial things. They're handling money. They're potentially counting money. Yes, now we live in a digital age. There's lots of credit card stuff and other things, but they still enjoy those other parts, because there's still a lot of people who want to give cash. They don't have, you know, credit cards. Some PACs, they don't deal with any sort of, you know, credit card or PayPal. So they want cash, they want checks. So going ahead and dealing with those things definitely goes ahead, and it helps teach these scouts some really good skills at a very young age. So one of the great things about fundraising is it actually takes a principle from our scout law. A scout is thrifty. So we're taking that principle, we're going ahead, we're using that as fundraising to go ahead and help teach our scouts, teach our youth one of the different ways to go ahead and use different parts of that scout law. Hopefully they're using other things like friendly as they're going ahead and doing this as well. But really that fundraising part focuses on our thrifty. When we go ahead and we do fundraising, there's a lot of different ways that that can potentially be divided up. Generally, when we're doing it as a PAC, we're having a good portion of that go to the PAC. There are ways to go ahead and share that with the scouts who participated as well. That's something that each PAC will have to go ahead and individually decide. You do need to make sure whatever your chartered organization is, that you're following all of kind of their rules and their laws based on what that organization is. So that's very important as you go ahead and your PAC goes ahead and decides that. So now that we kind of know why should we fundraise, what are those good options, I do want to go ahead and start talking about the fundraisers that CPC does go ahead and offer to us. So I'd love to know, who knows what opportunities CPC has for us. If you were going ahead and you were listening earlier before my presentation started, you probably have a hint to one of the answers. So I'm going to ask Virginia, what's one way that of our CPC fundraisers that we have available?
The spring candy sale, the snack attack, and meat sticks.
Yeah, so our world's finest chocolate and Tillamook smoker meat sticks. So if you're watching this soon, there is a kickoff training session, which is happening for that on January 8th. And then orders are due at the end of January. So if that's something you're interested in, please come to that training session. It generally is recorded, so you can go ahead and you can watch it later. And then please reach out to the fundraising committee if you have additional questions. All that information is available online. So there are some other and additional fundraisers as well. Does anybody know, or do any of our viewers online know and either want to say and or type what our other CPC fundraisers are that we have available?
Heather or Mary, you want to chime in on this one? Yeah, you do. We have popcorn sale too.
Yes,
go.
we have a popcorn sale too. So that's our
And
big.
I'm not sure exactly when it is.
Yeah, so that's kind of our big fall fundraiser that's also gone ahead. That's put on. That's pretty much wound down, although kids still can sell through the end of December to go ahead and count towards all of their points and awards and everything that way. You know, and if they have product left, great, go ahead, use it and get rid of it. If they have friends or family too, they can still go ahead and sell online and get that credit as well.
Now, Heather chimes in with a really good point that we did a first aid kit.
I was going to
So,
say,
okay, you're gonna get to it.
there's another
I
one.
was going to say that, Mike.
That anyone knew. So yes, this year for the first time we offered a first aid kit as well. And a lot of that, I think for troops, you could go ahead and order, but you could also go ahead and kind of do pre-sales to know exactly what you wanted and exactly what you needed. So that went ahead and paired nicely in September to National Preparedness Month. So we did go ahead and add that one. I was wondering if anyone was going to remember that or if that was going to be the sneaky surprise.
Heather's on it.
So good job. Very, very proud of you. Are there any questions in regards to any of those?
Well, I know that Candy and Beef used to offer a couple of oddball things, like they did. Was it cookie dough 1 year, 2 years? There was an opportunity of camp card kind of things, but they've really focused on the candy and the meat sticks, right? Kind of sticking to our knitting a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's really good to focus on the things that we know and the things that sell well.
Yeah.
So
that's
if you haven't done it for a while, it's focused now.
Yeah. And so, you know, definitely with that new first aid one, the kits will go ahead. I'm sure they'll evaluate how that is. And if they're going to go ahead and continue to offer that and pair that
We can
for
ask
the
our
national
insider, is there an opportunity? Are they going to come back around and do that, do you think? Or is it? Okay, so TBD on that one.
Yeah, but we did have another one this year, so that was fun.
Yeah.
So before I go ahead and I move into, you know, what are our opportunities outside of CPC, I did want to go ahead and talk about whatever that fundraiser is. We always want to make sure we're following the guidelines to safe scouting. That's really important, regardless of what type of fundraiser that is, where that's happening. So we always want to make sure it's an age appropriate activity. I'll get into that a little bit more. But the nice thing is all of the ones sponsored by CPC, they're all age appropriate, both for our packs and for our troops. Or, you know, if any of our crews or ships or anybody else would want to, it's all appropriate for all of them. The other things we want to make sure is we're always following our youth protection guidelines. So a lot of times if, you know, they're doing something larger like that popcorn sale and they're there, you may have multiple youth and multiple scouts there. Other places they'll just have the parent and the youth. So that way we're still following our guide to safe scouting rules and especially our youth protection rules and guidelines. So that one's really important. If we do have multiple scouts and multiple groups there, we always want to make sure we're following the buddy system. So if we have that youth who's like, hey, I got to go use the bathroom now, they're taking that buddy, they're taking that friend and everything along with them. So we're making sure we're following all of those. So that's always true, regardless of which method of fundraising that we're going ahead and doing and using. So let's go ahead and let's talk about, I have a question.
What's the unit money earning application?
Oh, she's getting
we're going to get there. Great question, but we are not there yet. So when we go ahead and we talk about our PAC directed fundraisers, the majority of the time, those are either providing some sort of service or they're going ahead and selling something. So who has examples of either providing a service or selling something?
Christmas wreaths.
Christmas wreaths, yes, this time of year. Well, probably a little bit before this time of year, but yes, that is a very, very popular one that lots of both packs and troops will go ahead and do. Any other ones? Yes.
Christmas tree pickups.
Christmas tree pickups, yes. So whether that's called tree crunch or Christmas tree recycling. So I actually wanted to use that example when we go ahead and we talk about our age appropriate activities. So why that's a great, fantastic fundraiser. There are lots of groups who do it. It's probably more suited for a troop than for a pack. I don't know how many lions it would go ahead and take to try to load
Carry
a
a
tree
tree.
into a trailer, but we also might run into some safety and hazards and other things they're doing that. So why it's a great fundraiser, probably not age appropriate, at least definitely for those younger scouts in our pack. Any other
Well, I know a troop
ideas?
that sells Christmas trees and is right
Christmas
now,
trees?
actually, yeah.
Yeah, so
Hey,
someone,
Mike,
Yes,
hey,
Mary.
they sell wreaths too.
they
Yep.
sell wreaths too, so
Yep.
Christmas trees, Christmas trees. Any other thoughts or ideas of
Flowers,
fundraisers? Flowers.
like
Yeah.
potted flowers in
Yeah.
a tray.
Yeah, potted flowers, plant sales. So
Need a
that's
plant
kind of
sale.
getting into the spring, the
Yep.
opposite time of the year. So we're having some balance between multiple things.
My pack did at least one, if not more than one, car wash
Car
in the
wash.
summer.
Yeah, so
And
that goes ahead.
Yeah.
And that gets into providing a service.
Yes.
Right. So
Right.
we've got that balance of what can we do that's service related and what can we go ahead and do that's actually some sort of physical, tangible item. So we want to think about, what are those options? What might we want to go ahead and do? When we do that, we already talked about making sure it's age appropriate. And we're following those guides to safe scouting. We need to make sure we're following any laws or ordinances in and around our local areas as well too. And then because we have a charter organization, we need to check with our charter organization and make sure that they will go ahead and they will approve our fundraiser. And one of the easy ways to do that, as I just had a question a little bit ago, is something called a unit money earning application. So I do want to go ahead. I
have it
do
on my
want
screen.
to talk about that. Yep, we're going to
Go
have
ahead
a
and share
screen
it. Yeah.
for those present. I actually have copies of it.
Ooh, it's blue
It-
too.
yeah.
Ask for blue.
So everyone gets blue paper because it's more fun that way. So-
Virginia has seen these probably a few times.
hand them out.
For sure,
So
for sure.
we have our money unit earning application. So this is something that does need to go ahead. It needs to be filled out in advance. It does require the charter organization to go ahead and approve, to go ahead and sign off on it as well. And it needs to be done at least 2 weeks in advance of your fundraiser. Ideally, probably 3 weeks is better. It gives you buffer time. But when you know you're going to do this, to go ahead and have that done. One of the other things on the back of this is a handful of questions to go ahead and talk about. I don't want to go over all of those because they are there for you to read and reference, but I did want to go ahead and pick out a couple what I feel are pretty good key points on this to make sure things that you guys are thinking about. So one of them is, do you really need a fundraising project? So think about, yes, do we need it? And then not just, hey, my next door neighbor, came over and they've got this great pitch for us to go ahead and sell, whatever. Timeshares, all right? So we do want to make sure whatever that is, does this represent our scouting values? Is this something that we go ahead and we can feel confident and we can go ahead and stand behind? So that kind of gets into, the next thing, like if we weren't a scout and we weren't selling this, is this something that would go ahead and sell itself, right? We do want to make sure we're choosing that good, that high quality product, that someone is buying this because yes, it really is a good product. And as a bonus, they're also supporting scouts, not, oh, you're a scout, so I'm going to buy it. It doesn't matter what it is or how much, it costs. We want to make sure that it goes ahead. It represents our values and everything there. On occasion, there will have to be a contract that may need to go ahead and be signed. If there is a contract with any item, the person who signs that contract is responsible, not scouting. So they are not going to take any liability for anything that is signed. Whatever person is signing that contract, it is a agreement between that person and the person they made the contract with. So that's something that I feel that's really important. It binds that individual to them. And then, so this is going to go ahead. We're going to talk about a little bit about soliciting as well. We talked a little bit about, how can you raise money? What are those different options and things that are out there and they're available? We always want to make sure if there is anything like, especially this time of year, like there are Salvation Army bell ringers. They're out there, they're asking for donations. We are not to wear our scouting uniform if we're going to go ahead and volunteer for something like that. We don't want to confuse people and think that, yes, are they supporting both groups? Are they supporting one group? So if that's something you want to go ahead and use and volunteer and do community service for, you absolutely can with approval, but you should not be wearing your uniform doing that type of soliciting. And so going ahead and talking about soliciting, we are not allowed outside of our direct organization. So when we go ahead and we're asking for donations, for example, for Camp for All, we're asking for our own youth, if we're asking our adults to go ahead and make donations, or if they're doing those matching contributions with companies, we're asking people in our own organization. We are not allowed to go out and door knock and say, hey, I'm in Scouts. Would you like to go ahead and support me? It doesn't work that way. We can't go ahead and directly make solicitations for people outside of our organization for supporting of our pack, of our troop, of our direct organization for the youth. So we've talked a little bit about some of the fundraisers that people have done and seen in the past. Those are all great. Those are all fantastic. I had in that pop quiz some additional types of options. And really that comes down to, we're not allowed to do any sort of gambling or types of chance games. So while you might think putting on a casino night sounds great and amazing, we can't do a casino night. We cannot do any form of gambling. When we talk about games of chance, we're talking about things like bingo. If you're doing a 50-50 raffle, there are winners, there are losers. We are not allowed to go ahead and do those sorts of things. If your group is going ahead and they're doing some sort of like silent auction, that's not a game of chance. You're going ahead and you're having someone go ahead and bid and do donations for that item in exchange. So that would be something that is allowed. Because I feel like sometimes all of that in the bidding, it can be kind of similar-ish and intense, but that one is allowed in everything there. So we talked about the solicitations, going door to door, donations, those sorts of things, going back to those pop quiz types of questions, right? We had GoFundMe, Kickstarter campaigns. That goes into asking for those solicitations or donations. We cannot go ahead. We cannot use that or use those types of examples. And then I mentioned a little earlier, just making sure that we're sticking with our charter's guidelines, because if they are a nonprofit, we don't want to put them at risk of losing that nonprofit for whatever we're going ahead and whatever we're doing. All right, so I'm going to get a little bit into different types of fundraising tips. So depending on the type of fundraising you're doing, you might need some different things. So if you're going to do something where you're going to have something set up like those popcorn sales or something, your pack might want to go ahead and invest in a little fundraising type of kit, right? Do you have a table? Do you have signage? Do you have, potentially additional information about your group as well too? Are you going to have that cash box there for people who do go cash? And then the question comes down to, where does that cash come from? Is that something your treasurer is going to pull out? You're going to kind of keep an eye on you. Is it going to be something from adults? And we just want to make sure that wherever that initial cash comes, we're also going ahead and we're paying where that went ahead and where that came from. The nice thing is, if you are like, yes, we do need to have this table, we do need to have those things, that can be used for more than just your fundraising. You could go ahead, you could use that at a join night or something as well. If you're doing a back to school event, you already have those supplies available. So again, we're kind of using that thrifty principle, and we're using them for multiple things to go ahead and help set us up for success. One of the things I will mention on our unit money earning projects, it talks about wearing uniforms. All of our council ones says, yes, please use your council ones. If it's not a council one, you do need to make sure that it's approved for you to go ahead and use that uniform. So if you have any questions, please make sure when you're submitting that unit money order form, you can ask those questions and make sure that that is there and that is all approved. And then looking over my notes. Really good point. So if you're going ahead and you're selling everything, whether you're pre-selling it, taking orders and recording that, or whether you have product there that you're selling, please make sure you track everything really, really super carefully. You don't want someone to be like, wait, I thought I ordered a Christmas wreath. And you're like, I don't have you on my list. So we want to make sure those things are all done. Those things are all tracked. If it's something you have that item for, like that first aid kit, and you're like, wait, I have X amount of money and this many for what happened, or I'm off. Like, wait, I thought I sold 3 deluxe ones and 2 regular ones, but my numbers aren't matching. So just make sure we're tracking all of those things really, really carefully when it's coming down for items. Yes.
So this has actually happened in our district where somebody called council, they ordered a wreath from a scout and they didn't get their wreath. And it came all the way back to, it was you and me that tried to figure out, well, where was this person?
Right.
What were the troops that were selling wreaths there? And it was a challenge. And it came down to exactly what you're talking about. Keeping your scouts, keeping track of all of their customers and not having something just slip through. And I think the person finally got the product, but oh my gosh, please keep track of your customers as best you can. Because we trust our scouts, especially when it's a troop, right? To do their best to be that salesperson, but they're human. And sometimes things happen.
Sometimes things happen.
And have you seen a third grader's handwriting?
It doesn't have to be a third grader. It could be an adult.
That's true. Have you seen my handwriting?
Right.
So-
But almost every fundraising, if you're doing a group like you're doing reads or doing some plans, a lot of them will give you a good form,
Right.
a good template that you're just like, hey, make 10 copies of this.
Yep.
Especially for
Exactly.
pre-orders. So it gives you all the, who's the name,
Yep.
what's their phone number, what did they order, check the box.
Yep.
So don't be
Yep.
afraid to ask.
Did
if
they
you're-
pay? Did they not?
Yeah, is
all
it
of those
check,
things.
cash?
Yep.
Is it a credit card?
Yep.
Was it deposited? Was it
Yeah.
IOU, whatever? So don't be afraid to ask for those things.
Because it is. It's very, very important.
Make it
right?
easy.
They want to support you and do those things. And if you don't follow through on that promise, that makes it really hard and really, really challenging.
Yep.
Perfect. So when you're going ahead and you're deciding on your fundraiser, whether that's something council approved or whether that's something that your troop is going to go ahead and do and complete that unit money earning form as well too, you want to make sure you set a clear goal. What is your goal? A lot of packs and troops will go ahead and use fundraisers after they've done their budgeting to try to help decide what do we need for the year? What is our goal? So make sure that's really super clear. So, you know what that goal and everything is ahead of time in advance, especially if it's going to go ahead and be a full group event fundraiser. Make sure when you're going ahead and you're doing that, you're thinking about, hey, are there anything, out of that profit, if we've done all the math, like, is there something that is hiding in there that's some sort of fee? Is there something that we have to go ahead and ship or was shipped to us? Is that included in part of what is our budget? What is our goal? How do we get there? A lot of times, one of the great things is we like to offer prizes to incentivize and encourage our scouts. So if that's coming out of that same amount, we need to go ahead and make sure we're taking into account those things. So when we set that goal, we're still able to reach it and achieve it, even if there are some little hidden away costs. We want to make sure we've accounted for all of those. Make sure when you're choosing this, you have plenty of time to select your products, right? You might be like, hey, I really think I want to go do this holiday wreath fundraiser, but you're realizing, oh, it's getting closer. And wait, oh, when did I have to put in that order? Oh, there's like a 2-week lag from when I put on my order to when I get my product. Ooh, someone may not want if I sell all the way up to December 1st, someone might want their wreath prior to December 14th, right? So we need to have that planning. You need to have that foresight, or if it's something you're ordering that's being shipped, what is that lag time? When are you promising those customers that they're going to go ahead and receive the product? We want to make sure that when we're going ahead and we're doing this, we have very clear, this is when everything starts. This is the beginning of our sale. This is the stopping, or this is the ending date. So if we do need that turnaround time, we're able to go ahead and get those things done. We want to make sure when they're setting this, we're definitely setting that finite amount of time. Nothing should go more than 12 weeks. If you go that long, people are losing their focus. So it should always be usually a short amount of time, definitely less than 12 weeks. Please don't have it go anything over
Most
that.
those council fundraisers are about 2 months-ish.
They're about 2 months. Yeah.
And when we did reads, it's usually like 4 weeks,
Yeah.
right?
I was gonna say you start going much over that and
It's oof. Yeah.
it's really, really rough. So
Open it, close
close
it,
it.
Deal with it,
deal.
right?
It's done.
Exactly. The other thing talking about things like that is make sure you're not running into fundraiser fatigue. So we talked about some things that were fall and some things that were spring. If you want to do multiple, try not to do everything fall and then have nothing for the spring. Because if you're like, oh, we're gonna do popcorn and then we're gonna do wreaths and then we're gonna do Christmas trees and then we're gonna do Christmas tree, you're gonna be exhausted and everyone's gonna be done. So trying to go ahead and find that nice balance is really, really good as well. We talked a little bit about, especially depending on how long you go, don't let that program fizzle. You want to be able to keep that energy, to keep that enthusiasm, to keep those things going. So whatever it is that motivates your scouts, maybe it's, we have a ice cream award, some silly little thing, that the top seller, top people go ahead and get whatever that is. Everyone who, does X amount gets whatever prize level. What are those things to go ahead and help keep them encouraged through? And that will go ahead and help you be successful.
Especially with Cubs, a bubble party can be.
Or like a balloon part, like all of those things sound fantastic. Yeah, it can be something really, really simple, or it could be, hey, as soon as everyone sells X amount, we get an ice cream, someone brings in ice cream bars or something, like something super simple, super, super easy. Another key is to make sure you have really good communication. So beforehand, getting everything set up. When is that kickoff? What does that look like? How does that look like during? How are you going? And then having that conclusion, what does that look like at the end? The other thing is, not everybody makes every meeting. Shock and surprise. I know. You want to make sure if anyone missed that kickoff meeting, you're going ahead, you're talking with them, you're answering their questions to make sure they are able to go ahead, get all of that information and be involved in that process and everything too. And I think the most important part as far as everything goes, especially with our Cubs, is keep it fun, right? We talked about that bubble party. Maybe we do some sort of big kickoff fun thing. We have some things partway through to go ahead to keep them encouraged and to keep them motivated. So that wraps up most of it, but I'm going to circle back to those pop quiz questions that I had at the beginning. So everyone, I expect to get 100% on this pop quiz. So, first of all,
We'll see what Jackson
can
does.
a PAC solicit donations?
Yeah, why not?
No. People will go ahead, and why you are going ahead and like selling or doing things, they'll be like, oh, I don't want that. Can I make a donation? Yes, they are 100% allowed to make a donation, but you cannot go ahead and physically ask for a donation. So that would include things like tip jars. That's asking for a donation. But if they offer, yes, you can accept their offer and be polite. Yes.
There's another form called fiscal policies and procedures that outlines gifts versus soliciting. So like you mentioned, people can give to you, but they will not get a tax write-off, deduction that way.
Yeah.
So those aren't.
Yeah.
I don't think I've only had that in my 6 or 7 years of doing Cub Scout fundraising. I think I had somebody ask for that once. It's usually grandma that wants to, I can't have popcorn. Here's a 20, have a great
Right.
day, go to camp, have fun, right?
Yeah,
And that's okay.
absolutely.
And there's always been a big thing about, if you have like a coffee can to keep your donations in, make sure it's not like part of your setup. Like it's over there. There's a big debate as to whether writing donations on it is okay or not. I'm not going to get into that, right? We used to just turn it around and it was a coffee can and somebody offer, oh, well, the donations go over here, and that there's a fine line there.
Right.
Right. So,
So,
And our practice is always, like with the trees or wreaths or whatever, it's, people may give you a 50 for a $40 tree.
Right.
It just goes in the bucket with the rest of the money. It's non-distinguishable from the rest of the
Correct.
stuff. So, or, you know, sometimes like you said, with popcorn, they go, oh, that's great. It's a $20 donation. Give me a popcorn. Great. Here's the 20. Now keep the popcorn.
And that will happen too, or like, I'd say like with the like $15 items, they're like, oh, I got a 20, like, here's the 15
Right.
for it, keep the extra 5. That's super, super common as well too.
I was gonna ask you, are you gonna talk about the couple other ones that come up sometimes? So depending on what activity you're doing, you may need a not-for-profit business license. So if you're in a physical location or an activity for an extended time, like a tree stand. So if you're doing a repeat activity in a location, you may need a business license from the municipality to be there. Usually they have nonprofit ones that are 0, 5, 10, 20 bucks. And then the other one is if you're in a physical location and doing activities, you may need to take advantage of the council's insurance.
Right.
So there's a form that you can pull from the council website that's a request for insurance. So like a tree stand, we have to do that and name the property owners in case somebody came in and like a tree fell over and crushed them. They need to, who's gonna get crushed by a Christmas tree, but
It could happen.
those are a couple ones, right? So business licenses for nonprofits and the insurance.
Is there rule of thumb for when that business license is required? If it's a
Usually if you're going to be in a place, right? So if you're wandering around the
Okay.
neighborhood doing wreaths or candy or whatever, they're not
No
gonna
big
ask for
deal.
one there. But if you're on a physical location, that's
Interesting.
gonna have a presence, then usually a municipality will ask you to do a
License.
not-for-profit business license.
Interesting. Okay, that's good to
They
know.
may or may not, depending on the municipality, for like
Yeah,
a car wash
yeah,
or a tree crunch or whatever. If you're doing it out of the ACE parking lot,
Right.
right, or something, they may ask for it.
interesting.
So that's something to be prepared and if you're doing a tree crunch at an ACE, they may ask you to do an insurance waiver.
Yeah.
So that's another one where you may do that with the council.
Now, if you're headquartered out of your chartered organization, you've already got that relationship, so that may
Right.
not be required. But you've got a great point. If you don't have that built-in relationship, that's where this comes in.
And better to ask,
Absolutely.
right? You'd rather ask and understand. You can always call the city hall and ask about the
Yeah.
business license if it's gonna be a presence thing, and they will tell you yes or no about, they'll have guidelines. And the
Interesting.
same with the insurance, right? If you're at a
Yeah.
location and you're doing stuff, we've never had Fred Meyer's or Walmart ask for an insurance waiver for us to set a table, nor a business license for the Saturday to
Yeah.
do candy sale or meat
Right.
sticks.
Repeat
But-
popcorn, whatever, yeah.
You always have to know the relationship with the business. So,
All right, so we talked about, and everyone named, I was very proud of everybody. What fundraising opportunities does council provide? So we're able to get that. We had 3 this year. So the fall trails and popcorn sales, the fall first aid kits, and then our spring world's finest chocolate and Tillamook meat sticks. So we've got those. And again, say meat sticks is coming. So if you haven't done fundraisers and you want some help getting involved in one of the council ones, it's a great way to go ahead and get started.
That is an easy one to like get into because the price point's lower for each thing.
Correct.
And you can order a small amount
Yes.
to get started and just see how
Yeah.
it works, right? If
And
you've
then you
never done it.
can do reorders as well too. You don't
Yeah,
have to
Vernal.
order.
And if you're lucky, Jackson over here will just eat all of it.
Yeah, you don't have to order your entire amount. They do have a return policy window and things as well too.
Yeah.
So it kind of gives you a nice little safety net to go ahead and do those things. So we talked about, can you do fundraisers outside of CPC? We talked about several, many different ones that people have done that have experience with. And then we talked about some that you cannot do, like, can you run a bingo night? No gambling or games of chance. You cannot do that.
My other favorite is booze sales. It's just don't do the hooch sales, you know? So first somebody asked me about that about 10 years ago. I'm like, what? Seriously? You're wearing a scout uniform asking about beer. I think it was a beer fundraiser on there. No, that doesn't really jive.
No, remember, make sure whatever products we're doing are supportive of scouting, and that
Absolutely.
is something that someone be like, yes, those, we need to take into account those values when we're going ahead and we're choosing those products. And the last one I had, which goes along with kind of the soliciting donations, is can you do a Kickstarter or GoFundMe campaign? Yes or no?
I'm gonna say no.
You're correct. You cannot do a Kickstarter or
Right.
GoFundMe. You cannot directly solicit for money. So,
outside of your organization, right?
Correct.
We can ask our troop families for Camp for All, stuff like that, but. And I like to visualize that of, would I put a Cub Scout out on a street corner with a cup and begging, alms for for the Cub Scouts? No, we don't do that. That's the line.
exactly.
Yeah.
So whatever those things are that fall into that. So that is what I have.
Any
As far as
questions?
fundraising goes, yep, I'm happy to ask questions. I think the fundraising form was showed up there.
Was.
We can definitely make sure we get the link, but on that form
Yes.
is both the form and then you have all those guidelines to go ahead and go over when you're choosing and making sure, is everything right? Is everything appropriate?
And if there are any issues, whoever you submit the form to typically goes to district executive, something like that is part of the council professional staff, and they will let you know if there's something in there that you need to adjust. I've had that happen a few times, and it's perfectly fine to have that conversation. Better to get that ironed out before you get started, which is why 2 to 3 weeks is
Yes,
really important.
2 to 3 weeks is very important.
Yeah.
If you do need to change anything, you've
Yeah.
got that time to do that before that started. Another question.
Should only one person have access to the bank account?
Oh,
So I didn't look at financing, but I know
that's
like
a
for-
treasurer
Yeah,
question.
treasure question, which I'm not, but I know a lot of times, like for those things, they always want to have 2 signatures and things like that. So I would say in general, yes, there is always a minimum of
Yeah.
2 people on every account. That way someone else has access, can see, and you guys are essentially agreeing on joint decisions.
Is there a guideline from council or international on that?
Yeah, at least 2.
At least 2?
So committee
Okay.
chair and treasurer.
Yeah, okay.
I would throw in the charter rep as well,
Mhm.
because assets are technically owned by the charter.
By the charter.
That's a good point,
organization.
actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of
That's a really
sense.
good point.
So, and a lot of orgs do this, as I've found for the years. It's the charter org's bank account.
Right. Yeah, that's the
That's why
EIN number
always-
that you
right,
use.
The
Yeah.
EIN is the
Yeah.
charter orgs, and you come and go with Scoutmaster and all
Now,
that. Now, the fiduciary point you will hear is the treasurer does not have access to the money.
Right.
Because you want breaking responsibilities.
Yeah.
Treasurer counts money in and the money that went out.
Yeah.
The Scoutmaster and
Committee
committee
chair,
chair
yeah.
would be the ones that have
The charter
spending,
rep, yeah.
right? Or if you have like somebody that books camping, you might have somebody that's your activities chair within your unit, and they
Right.
might have a debit card or a checkbook also. But we've always had that good fiduciary responsibility of one person's tracking the money that isn't spending or, right? So you're really separated that way. So you never have that question.
It's a matter of checks and balances, right?
Right,
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
it's good that way.
Yeah, we're delving into Dave Hammond's 2-hour class at University of Scouting of good policies for finances, and there's a lot to talk about there.
Oh, yeah.
It's well beyond this. Oh,
In
yeah.
the scout account. So if you ever get bored, you don't know what to do with
Yeah.
50 or 60 minutes of your life, you can go on any of the scout forums and look at their discussions
Oh
on
my gosh.
how people do or hate scout accounts.
Yep.
And then the BKMs for how to best manage them and how to have them go to.
Let me
bad
speak
place
to
in the
that really
unit.
briefly because you didn't, and this is
Yeah.
something I found really important is the litmus test for are you doing it correctly in terms of your scouts earning some equity in their scouting program.
Right.
The thing you really should try to not do is treat your scouts like they are employees. It should not be an hourly basis. It shouldn't be, you sell a buck, you get a buck. There can be you get an equity out of it, but it should be a percentage. It should be part of it. And some of it, if not the majority, should go to support the entire unit. Right. And that's a whole thing that came about. I want to say it was 12 or 13 years ago, and the IRS got all up in arms about a roller skate group somewhere, and it just went bonkers in 2013. And that's where everyone started to have problems with scout accounts. Technically, it's okay as long as you do it correctly and don't treat your scouts as if they're employees. They're part of a nonprofit organization and they're building equity in their scouting program.
And I think the last characterization there is it's not their money.
Yes.
It's the charter org's money, and they may have earned credits.
Yes.
For summer camp or camping
Yeah.
or some kind of scout supplies they need. Maybe it's their car or
Right.
the renewal. There's all kinds of things that you can do because all the money, and if you go through the stuff, says it has to be in direct support of the scout program.
Yes.
So if you have a scout graduate from a It's always tenuous about what do you do when they move from a pack to a troop
Yeah,
or when they age out of their troop.
Yeah.
Right? That's really the unit's money.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
charter org's money, not even the units. Because if the unit folds, it's the charter org's money.
exactly. Yep. And we're not even to go with Scout graduating to a troop and trying to take their massive result from a resale or whatever with them. That's a real fraught thing. So yeah. Thank you, Christy.
Thanks for taking that. It was really well
Yeah.
organized.
Any questions
Any
from
questions?
online? From the room? Anything else you want to, I mean, she did a great job. Yeah. All
I'm
right.
glad you recorded that because we're gonna be just streaming that everywhere.
That's right.
I know.
You
Yeah.
gotta
Okay.
get all the hits.
All right. Well, speaking of which, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.